paralysis and Alzheimer's disease, even though food additives were not the original cause of the disorder. Every 10 years, they double the amount of MSG that's put in food. That's not even counting the aspartame. So we're consuming enormous amounts of these substances in a variety of foods. We're magnesium deficient, which makes you infinitely more susceptible, and we're exposed to all kinds of metals like aluminum and mercury, which paralyzes your ability of your mitochondria to produce energy, and that magnifies excitotoxicity enormously. We're developing a society because of all of these different factors known to affect the brain function. We're seeing a society that not only has a lot more people of lower IQ, but a lot fewer people of higher IQ. In other words, a dumbing down, a chemical dumbing down of society. So everyone's sort of mediocre. That leaves them dependent on government because they can't excel. We have these people of lower IQ who are totally dependent. Then we have this mass of people who are going to believe anything they're told because they can't really think clearly. And very few people of very high IQ who have good cognitive function who can figure this all out. And that's what they want. So, you know, you can kind of piece it together as to why they are so insistent in spending so many hundreds of millions of dollars of propaganda money to dumb down society.
What was his name again? Dr. Russell Blair. Quite good interviews with him and lectures online. Put up.
You know, Donald Rumsfeld, who you mentioned before.
Yeah.
He was CEO of the company who made aspartame.
Come here, yeah.
Even though the FDA actually banned it because of its toxicity, he passed a bill in Congress to make it legal. And that's how we heard it.
The important thing to realise about food additives and all these MSG and aspartame and tobacco and stuff like that, it doesn't affect everyone the same. But the science of it, it's a normal. The effect is like it's a normal distribution of the population. You know, where there's an average effect. Smaller amount of people have a really high adverse effects, and then there's like some other people who have no effects on it. And this is like it's the same with alcohol. It's affecting alcohol on people, nicotine, and all sorts of things. You know, so that's why the effect doesn't affect everyone the same way. And some people it does. You know.
But it's like how some people can smoke till 90 years of age, and then some people get cancer at 30.
But most things they have normal distribution. People's effect of like electromagnetic waves on people's normal distribution as well. So you get headaches and stuff, you know, because they're not high in the normal distribution and so forth. Right. So Code of Sanitaires is this group that's coming up with new food standards for the World Health Organization. And we look at people who support it, some quite large characters in there, pushing through these new food standards. And it's about using food as an economic weapon. And it's created by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN and World Health Organization. People can get all their documents from each of these, they're all online available publicly. It's all about the formation of biased recommendations on food standards. But the way, the sneaky way to do it is, there's just some group, you know, it could be anyone's come up with some standards, but the way it's been forced in, that the World Trade Organization are using it as their standard. So now if you don't live up to this standard made by just these guys, then you know you're going to be in for trade violations with the World Trade Organization. So this is how they force all the countries to step in line with it.
These are the people who also got a campaign against natural medicines as well.
Yeah.
Traded bad natural medicines or only what natural medicines sold over the counter chemists.
Yeah, it's completely backed by big pharmaceutical companies. That's what it's all about.
Also, the swine flu thing that's just been out, it was through that the World Health Organization was given power above the power of the governments of every country. So
potentially.
That was through the swine flu that came about.
An epidemic situation, they had the power to come in and take over country. And all these new international directives, and stuff. Incredible. But what the Code of Sanitaires does is it classifies vitamins and minerals as drugs. naturally occurring vitamins as drugs, and places will place, if it's imposed properly, upper limits on the allowed vitamins and minerals which human beings needs. And if they've set upper limits, and they can reduce it, once they want. You know, these are naturally occurring things. What are they going to do? Put an upper limit of water or something? This is,
They're not putting money into the pharmaceuticals pocket.
yeah.
That's why they don't want it.
Kaboom.
You've got to go to the doctors and get a prescription, and he doesn't know what he's giving you.
In Norway, you have to go to a doctor. You can't buy vitamins and minerals over the counter. So you have to go to a doctor, get a prescription from a doctor for them. This is the way it wants to go. Because it's not about growing some garden, food in your back garden. You have to buy this off the shelf from these big companies. What's wrong with you? You know? It's absolutely incredible. So technically, if you start growing plants in your back garden, they could come in and raid your house for having illegal drugs. If this was fully implemented, and this is what it's all about, you know?
It's part of the depopulation agenda, isn't it?
Well, that's another very interesting area.
If you look at the UN, I used to campaign for fathers' rights back in the 90s, you know, and I got alerted to some of the stuff the UN were doing. I went on the website and explored it. And the UN issued vast numbers of diktats to governments all around the world, you know, including in family law. You know, what's it got to do with the UN, you know, United Nations, or family law, and trying to impose some sort of standards around the whole world? Couldn't believe. I mean, one of the things I found on, this is all online. You get it online on the UN websites. Was extensive. It had been translated in about 20 different languages as well. You know, I mean, the amount of cost of this, you know, it's just horrendous costs of running all this. And most people are not aware of anything. You've highlighted something to do with food, but there's lots of other things. I don't know if you've heard of Agenda 21. It comes from the UN as well. Sort of local control, you know.
Yeah. Agenda 21 is what it's all about. Most people have probably never heard that though. People on the street. That's the...
What was that say again?
Agenda 21. That's the...
Local sustainable
global sustainable development. That came way back in the
ecology or something like that.
Absolutely, before global warming came up, and it's just talking about, oh, it's a nasty document, just complete and utter economic control and oh.
But the UN is getting its tentacles into all sorts of parts of our lives, you know, and they're not elected.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can criticise how far Westminster's elected and all that sort of thing, but these people are not elected at all.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware.
No, they're not. They're chosen. It's a great way.
When you know who provided the money for the United Nations building,
yeah, the Rockefeller family,
always comes back.
all the big banking families,
yes.
form and support.
It's all to do with this global. We're all going to be in one company of people, and they at the top are going to be questioned or anything.
Yeah, completely.
You've got to do as we're told. And if, like me, you don't want to do as you're told, you might have to look for into something wrong, which is
it's all, it's like a
take
big...
down to consideration at the time it comes.
It's like, you know, it's everything, all the storylines and events that go on. It's like a giant EastEnders that's going on. And they keep replaying scenes until they get what they want. When you go back to the First World War, after that, the way to unite all countries, the League of Nations came up. And this is the way to get, you know, global sort of central means of control. And then most countries didn't sign up to that. When they go, oh, well, scrap that after World War II. And they go, oh, United Nations pops up. And just like League of Nations Part 2. And then they force more countries into it. And it's, you know, it's just, there's so much there, it's hard to even talk about it all. Just like everything here, if you're talking about psychological operations, conditioning, then what are the things that you're not telling me about, you know? There's so many areas that people look into. But what Faculties Alimentarius mandates is the end to all organic food production. So they want, you can't grow your own vegetables, you have to buy them. They have contained vitamins which are not drugs. Mandatory food irradiation. All food for human consumption must be irradiated. You know, the same setup for irradiating medical equipment and stuff. You know, even though there's a lot of research to show that free radical production and stuff like this can adverse effects in the human body. Was that true? Unlabeled genetically modified ingredients. It's nothing we're pushing through.
That's frightening, that way.
Yeah, completely.
And nano ingredients.
Yeah. And increased use of pesticides, far and above levels that had been decided were safe way back, you know, about 50 years ago. All the countries in the world agreed on it. Now they're pushing us up far higher.
And of course, in the genetically modifying now, where it was fruit and vegetables,